Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? Let's see. Are we a little bit late? A couple seconds behind schedule here with a small soundboard malfunction, but everything's on the up and up now. Hey, computer, now is not the time to install any updates. How about later? I gotta ask. In an hour? No. Try tonight. Or remind me tomorrow. Or in fact, turn off automatic updates and leave me alone. Okay? I think we've all reached that point. Good morning. It is Wednesday, May 30th, 2018, the penultimate day in May 2018. That doesn't mean anything in particular, but that's where we are. Lots to catch up on today. I forgot to tell you about some housekeeping for tomorrow. Tomorrow is a big day, and we may experiment with a new format tomorrow. Ordinarily, I'd say, oh my goodness, I have a morning appointment. I'm going to have to miss the show and either pre-tape a show or go with a rerun. But I know Greg hates that, and it's difficult to keep Greg happy when he doesn't get a chance to get on the air and share his stories with all of you. And of course, you're unhappy too. That's the key point. But we also like to keep Greg happy. And, well, tomorrow's one of those appointments that you just can't delay. My eldest son will get his braces off, and I couldn't ask him to delay that for even a minute. So that's a 10 o'clock, well, 10:20 appointment. So I think we might experiment a little bit and try and see if we can rig up doing a live first hour so that we can get the day's news with Greg, and then I'll skip town and not do any work, and perhaps run an hour of pre-taped but still more or less up-to-the-minute news, digesting some of the stories that have been waiting in the wings for a little bit, and get a few of those on the record, and thereby produce a brand new, all-new show for Thursday without having to miss out. And then on Friday, well, I guess we'll all be 10 pounds lighter because all the braces and hardware will come off. I don't know what's going in afterwards, but that's a little housekeeping update for you for tomorrow. But basically, continue on. As a listener to the show, carry on, enjoy yourself, and we'll see you tomorrow and Friday for this week. Of course, we'll have to start discussing our summer schedule as well, and just what the hell we're going to do about that. Okay, other news, though, much more important than my own vacation schedule, and even the braces. Lots to catch up on. The president is mumbling about something. He had a rally yesterday in which he denounced everybody and decided that he hates America, and we'll detail all the ways in which he said that. And the governor of Missouri is gone. Eric Greitens has finally resigned, and as I understand things, as I'm catching up on the news from last night, he thought he could ride out the whole sex scandal part of things, I guess, but once they started looking into his dark money and where he was, by what means was he financing his extraordinarily ambitious and short, and now shorter than he thought, political career, that, I guess, frightened him off, and he took off last night in the middle of the night. We'll catch up on the hows and whys and I guess wherefores, if you really want to sound archaic about things, in the upcoming segments, I am sure. Greg Dworkin is here early. Let's get started. Good morning, Greg.
Oh, yay. Oh, yay.
Oh, yay. He's here.
Oh, yay.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, all right. Well, let's get down to business, or proceed slowly, if you like. We'll just...
thank you for keeping me happy. That's the whole purpose of the show, right? I'm always happy when you have the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy when I, every morning I start saying, oh, my God, what am I going to do? Oh, well, 3 days out of the week I say, I got an idea. I'll ask Greg what to do.
Even better. You should invite Tim Lang or maybe Joan to come on a little early, and then, or even Armando, and then we can talk and you can have breakfast.
Yes, right. I mean, ultimately, that's
we've
my goal.
Done that.
Right. Well, ultimately, I plan to turn the show into a multi-level marketing operation, whereby one of several of you do the show, and then I get $1 million.
Right. We got a lot of headlines to talk about today.
Yes.
But I got to start with some of the real headlines in the past 24 hours that Peter Dow tweeted out, just because you have to shake your head sometimes and say, okay, this is a reality show 2018.
Yes.
Real headlines in the past 24 hours. North Korea won't give up nuclear weapons, but could open burger chain as favor to Trump. Bill Harnsberger, Bill from Portland, Maine, certainly covered that in his tweet this morning.
Oh, I see. Yeah, right, he did, and I think that might actually work. I mean, that he might really be right about that.
He found the right way.
Yeah.
Also, here's another one. Kim Kardashian and Donald Trump will meet at White House to discuss prison reform.
And hamburgers. Yes, that's she's a big prison reformer, maybe. I don't know.
And the third one, and the last one in his little list here, is U.S. Geological Survey warns against roasting marshmallows over erupting volcano.
Oh.
It's not safe.
Well, for a number of reasons, I would guess. Not the least.
So, these are things you have to tell people.
Okay.
And then, there's Tom Arnold. Remember Tom Arnold?
Yes, I do. He was from...
Remember who he is?
He knew Roseanne.
He did.
I think that's it.
And he was married to her once.
Right.
So he tweets this morning, on the bright side, now that Roseanne Barr is permanently unemployable, she can finally get inside the head of Roseanne Connor, really sink her teeth into the character, walk in her shoes, become one with, inhabit the soul of, do a whole Daniel Day-Lewis thing. Or she could tweet.
Yeah, well, whatever happens, happens. We'll see how it goes. If you've got a pile of money, I guess I would just tweet.
Right. So speaking of tweeting, we got to get to Donald Trump's tweets this morning.
He doesn't have a pile of money, though.
Yeah, well, he does. It's just Russian money. So Trump asked Sessions to retain control of Russia inquiry after his recusal. This is the New York Times story that's just breaking.
Right. We'll see if we can fix it.
It turns out that by the time Attorney General Jeff Sessions arrived at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort for dinner, I presume it was hamburgers, one Saturday evening in March 2017, he had been receiving the presidential silent treatment for 2 days. Mr. Sessions had flown to Florida because Mr. Trump was refusing to take his calls about a pressing decision on his travel ban. The Times stylistic quirk here of always referring to the president as Mr. Trump, Mr. This, Mr. That.
He loves it.
It just makes me think of the whole Ben Stiller parody of Michael Cohen. I'm loyal to Mr. Trump.
Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump. Yeah, he loves it, and it's coincidental in this case, but it really serves him well.
Coincidental, I get that, right? So when they met, Mr. Trump was ready to talk, but not about the travel ban. His grievance was Mr. Sessions, the Keebler elf. Remember that guy? The president objected to his decision to recuse himself from the Russia investigation. Mr. Trump, who had told aides that he needed a loyalist overseeing the inquiry, berated Mr. Sessions and told him he should reverse his decision, an unusual and potentially inappropriate request. Mr. Sessions refused. The confrontation, which has not been previously reported, is being investigated by the special counsel, Robert S. Mueller, as are the president's public and private attacks on Mr. Sessions in efforts to get him to resign. Mr. Trump dwelled on the recusal for months, according to confidants in the current and former administration officials who described his behavior toward the Attorney General. The special counsel's interest demonstrates Mr. Sessions' overlooked role as a key witness in the investigation into whether Mr. Trump tried to obstruct the inquiry itself. It also suggested that the obstruction investigation is broader than it is widely understood to be, encompassing not only the president's interactions and firing of the former FBI Director James Comey, but also his relationship with Mr. Sessions. And then goes on to document a lot of this. And then it says the president's lead lawyer in the case, Rudy Giuliani, who's really not the lead lawyer, he's the lead PR flack, said that if Mr. Trump agreed to answer the special counsel's questions in interviews as subject in continuing negotiations, he should not be forced to discuss his private deliberations with senior administration officials. Talking about the Attorney General, Mr. Giuliani argued, would set a bad precedent for future presidents. Well, we've heard that argument before.
Yes. Well, he is a bad president, so that's fine.
He is a bad president, without question. So, what happened? So Trump decides that he's going to tweet about this morning. And as a prelude to that, let me just point out that Trey Gowdy was on Fox News, I guess, yesterday, and basically said that, given everything I've seen, because he's one of the few Republicans who's actually seen the classified documents that was set up as a review recently, whether it's a good idea or not, he looked at them and he said, given what we know, I'm even more convinced that investigating the campaign was a good thing to do, and the FBI is doing what we as citizens would want them to.
Oh, my God. Yeah,
but that's not what he's tweeting about this morning. What he's tweeting about this morning is this. It says, Representative Trey Gowdy, quote, "I don't think so. I think what the president is doing is expressing frustration that Attorney General Sessions should have shared these reasons for recusal before he took the job, not afterward. If I were the president and I picked somebody to be the country's chief law enforcement officer, and they told me later, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be able to participate in the most important case in the office, I'd be frustrated too, and that's how I read that. Senator Sessions, why didn't you tell me before I picked you? There are a lot of really good lawyers in the country. He could have picked somebody else," end quote. And Trump adds, "and I wish I did." Yeah, he did. He picked Michael Cohen.
Yeah, he's great.
I thought the whole tweet thing was about Michael Cohen, but it turns out no, it was about Jeff Sessions and the fact that he's in trouble with the Mueller investigation over this.
Yeah,
and that's not even the leading story of the day. It just happens to be the most recent one.
Yeah, sure. Just the latest one to fall out of his mouth, fingers. I don't know. Yeah, it's I mean, it was pretty obvious he was going to have to recuse himself, but I guess that's just like an indication of how little Donald Trump understands both of sort of the rules that govern how lawyers work and how government and conflicts of interest are ordinarily resolved, and how serious this was. I mean, he thought it was nothing. He figured he'd never get caught. Plus, he thought, as president, you can just order people to do whatever the hell you want.
Right, because the Justice Department works for me like Michael Cohen does. They're my fixers, and I'm really upset that you're not fixing him.
Yeah. He's just that dumb, so, okay.
Yeah. So, you know, the bigger picture here is whatever else is going on, just keep in mind that the whole Trump family is a crime family. Ivanka is part of it. She was on this conference call about sports, about something, and all the people on the conference call kept asking her about her business with China and whether or not she got her brands approved, and what's that got to do with Chinese trade talks, and she got off the call because she couldn't take the heat.
Yeah, well, she's not very smart either, really. So, that was a smart thing to do to leave.
But that's all part of the big picture. So when you read the Sessions story and you hear it about, you just have to keep in mind, basically everything that people have accused Trump of doing is true.
Yes, and everything Trump accuses
Collusion
other
and conspiracy,
people of doing.
Yes. Obstruction of justice, yes. Mm-hmm. Money laundering, yes.
Yes, got that.
I mean, the whole thing is done in order to protect his money and the illusion that it's his money, because the money actually comes from all sorts of foreign sources, and he's doing everything possible to obstruct the looking into that. And the fact that it happened to coincide with Russia also making overtures, well, so did the Saudis, so did, basically everybody. Sure. Because once Trump was there, it was transactional open season. Yeah. And that's really the whole big picture.
Right. You'd be foolish at that point not to get into it. You can't, you're not going to get prosecuted in your own country. And we're certainly
look at UAE. I can't let the Saudis, bid by this alone. We got to go in with them. And then Gutter says, oh, they're on the other side. I better outbid them. So now everybody's trying to get them to do stuff. That's really what goes on here all the time. And we're just going to learn it. Everybody's going to say, oh, we're shocked by the depth. We never knew. We had no idea it was this bad. Well, actually, we do have a pretty good idea it's this bad.
Yeah.
Just saying it.
Well, the other thing I liked from that first paragraph of this is that Sessions has to fly to Florida because Trump is so angry with him that he was refusing to take phone calls from the Attorney General, which is first, like, again, that's not how you do this president thing. You don't get miffed personally at the Attorney General and then not take the AG's calls because that guy, he took my seat or he ate the last potato chip or what. You can't do that. And secondly, I like he's trying to call him about making a pressing decision. I'd love to know what this was. I would love to eventually learn that they lost a major case on their travel ban because Trump was so angry at Jeff Sessions that he wouldn't take the phone call, and they missed the opportunity to make some kind of argument or make some filing that they thought might save their stupid travel ban, and they lost in court because Trump was, irked about this stuff. I don't know if that'll ever pan out, but it's bad enough that you're not taking calls from the cabinet. I don't like that guy. He had the last cupcake.
Well, let's briefly talk about decency, and then let's get back to Trump.
Did you find some?
Yeah.
All right.
Roseanne Barr is fired. She's out.
That seems decent.
It's the racism. Eric Greitens, as you pointed out at the beginning of the show, is out.
Yeah.
The funny part about that is that it had nothing to do with decency in the sense that Greitens realized that his affair with a hairdresser, which got into a little BDSM stuff, that wasn't the reason why he resigned. He wasn't going to fight that. It's only about sex. I could do that. I think he's like the only Missouri governor who has the official portrait that doesn't include his family.
Is that right? Or pants?
I think so. I read that somewhere. I read it on the internet, so it must be true. I think Abraham Lincoln said it.
It may be true. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how long has he even been governor? Is he brand new or?
Yeah, relatively new. But anyway, here's this story from St. Louis today. Greitens goes out the way he came in, haunted by the specter of dark money.
Okay.
All right. So It wasn't just that he had these other cases, and he had civil cases and criminal cases, impeachment hearings. He was going to fight that.
Fight.
But then he had a hastily called news conference at which he turned his back on reporters, says the story, and walked away without taking questions. Greitens blamed his opponents for waging a months-long attack on his administration.
Oh, darn it. They're attacking me.
Oh, it says it here. The first governor to ever have his family picture serve as an official portrait.
Oh.
Hanging in state office buildings around Missouri, went out without his wife or their two boys at his side. He was alone as the other two branches of government closed in.
Huh.
So that's a story. The first governor to ever have his family picture serve as an official portrait. It's the other way around. It's not that he didn't have his family. It's that in this case he did. He was the only one. But not quite 17 months into his term, Greitens is going out the way he came in, haunted by the specter of dark money. Earlier in the morning, on the day that would signal a sudden end, Cole County Circuit Court Judge John Beetham ruled that Greitens would have to turn over documents from his campaign and those from his dark money committee, A New Missouri, to the House committee investigating the governor's various alleged misdeeds. So until he had to turn over who was funding his campaign, he was going to fight it.
Okay.
What does that mean? How bad is it that the dark money made him suddenly run away when all this other stuff did not?
That is a good question. I mean, in an atmosphere where this is happening to the president and the Russians are paying for it, this is worse? Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
One of them, A New Missouri, is a 501c4 nonprofit that hasn't disclosed its donors like other political action committees. Now, I don't understand the law very well. My recollection is 501c3s can do advocacy but not politics. And 501c4s are for politics.
Yeah, something like that.
So that if I wanted to set up, let's say, a website and just concentrate on pandemic flu preparation, and I wanted to fund it, I could do that through a 501c3.
Yes.
But if that particular blog just then endorsed a candidate, that would be no good because it's a 501c3, and you can't do that. But if it's a 501c4, you could.
Yeah, it's to be avoided. I mean,
something like that.
You know how law is. I don't know.
Well, I don't because I'm not a lawyer and I don't play one on the internet. But the 501c4s can do politics, political action committees. And so it's this committee that long after Hafner was no longer working for Greitens, raised most of the governor's money, it says, and continues spending it in ways that leaves the taxpayers in the dark about who's funding the governor's activities. What is the purpose of a C4? Lauer asked Hafner. It's to conceal the identity of donors.
Okay.
All right.
Why should we have
that? Who are the people funding him? And so who are the radical right billionaires who are doing this? It's hard to know, and Greitens doesn't want people to know, so he quit.
Okay.
It's a weird story, and I'm sure there's going to be more to it, because, who funded the dark money may actually come out. And it'll just be interesting. I can't say now, but just keep an eye on it, because it'll be interesting if it has national implications.
Yes. Okay.
Certainly has national implications in the sense that Greitens being an embarrassment to something that the Republicans wanted to get off TV because Claire McCaskill's running, and the Attorney General there is Republican is running against her, and they didn't want it to be a major, major, major story. Josh Hawley, I guess.
Yes, that's the guy's name.
So they're happy about that. But Greitens is not a decent guy, and so decency won, and he's out. Roseanne Barr is out.
Right.
And I don't know if there's anything further to say about that, other than she's a complete out-and-out racist idiot. And why ABC thought it was a good idea to hire her to do this in the first place is anyone's guess, because we all saw this coming and knew it was going to end this way. Inevitable.
Yes. And apparently the story is that ABC was looking for ways to sort of like, I don't know, somebody says they were looking to reach out to, Trump voters in American heartland, and they thought putting one of them on TV would sort of do that. And then they realized that, well, their leading lights are deplorable, and that's going to happen. That's what, you're going to end up having to fire that person, and then they'll be mad at you. You were probably better off not doing it in the first place, but I guess I understand the instinct. It's just, then you think about it.
Why don't we do a reality show, and we'll have George Zimmerman host it?
Yeah, right, sure.
Right,
He's
the
just
guy that
like
shot down Trayvon Martin. I mean, what could go wrong?
I can't think of a thing that would go. I mean, and it was a show, of course.
I mean, I know there's stuff in the past that came up, but hey, this is a new day, and we'll just go forward and hope everything. And besides, there'll be people he attracts, so it'll be good for our bottom line.
Sure. And and by the way, most of the afternoon yesterday after she was fired was filled with conservatives saying, "Oh yeah, well, what about Bill Maher? He also something," and they drew some parallel, and it had to do with I don't know what.
Whataboutism, my favorite.
Well, that was very interesting because people are like, "Oh no, not Bill Maher! Don't take him from us, please."
I don't care.
Okay, you want to? I mean, hey, I did see somebody
I just
tweet.
don't understand the relationship, but whatever.
I saw somebody tweet about it, like, "Hey, first they came for Roseanne Barr," and I was like, "Hell yeah!" And then they came for Bill Maher, and I was like, "It must be my birthday."
Okay, fine. You can have them. I'll throw in cash and a draft choice, and a player will be named later. I think it's a great deal.
All right, close it all down. No more TV. All right.
Right.
That was pretty good. Okay, well, they didn't get him, so something. I'm neutral.
Meanwhile, The Hill points out nearly 2/3 of Americans believe that racism is still a major problem in American society and politics, according to a new NBC News SurveyMonkey poll.
Hey, well, thanks for saying so.
64% of those surveyed said racism remains a major problem. 30% said racism exists but is not a major public issue. 3% said racism once existed but is no longer a problem.
Like dragons.
And 1% said racism has never been a crucial problem. I guess those are the Trump rally-goers?
I guess so.
Or the neo-Nazis, I'm not sure. They didn't define them in the poll. The heartening thing is nearly 2/3 of Americans believe it's a big issue. So that's all decent. That's all good. But then again, we have the current White House. What does he do?
I don't know.
He meets with a delegate from Viktor Orban from Hungary.
All right.
Or as Spencer Ackerman puts it in the Daily Beast, Viktor Orban won re-election as Hungary's prime minister last month through a blood and soil campaign that married anti-Semitism with Islamophobia. Donald Trump's Secretary of State is about to reverse years of U.S. policy and receive Orban's chief diplomat at Foggy Bottom. Current and former State Department officials expressed alarm that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is giving FaceTime to an envoy for the demagogic and authoritarian Orban, who happens to be Vladimir Putin's best European friend. I'm effing disgusted, said a State Department official speaking on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to speak up to the press.
Not allowed to say effing disgusted, anyway.
Well, he said it, and they printed it.
Well,
the official
okay.
considered Pompeo cozying up to individuals like Orban part of a broader pattern of the Trump administration ignoring human rights abuses and democratic backsliding. So I remind you of Maya Angelou's famous quote, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. While this is happening, Trump is at a rally yesterday in Tennessee testing midterm messages on immigration, MS-13, animals, and other things. I have to remind you before I get to that story of something that happened in your home state of Virginia. And this was October 27, 2017, story in the Washington Post on Virginia politics. Ralph Northam strikes back. New commercial blasts Ed Gillespie attack ads as despicable. What are those attack ads? After weeks of advertising from Republican Ed Gillespie that sought to tie Northam first to MS-13 gang violence and then to a child pornographer, Northam's new commercial blasts him as false attacks. Northam went on to win. I just point out that in Virginia, the MS-13 gang attacks did not work. So just keep that in mind going forward as we look to see what happens. Now, Tennessee is not Virginia, and Marsha Blackburn obviously accepted the Trump help. But basically, Trump is trying to link Democrats to MS-13. He's trying to link Nancy Pelosi specifically, called her an MS-loving Democrat. And it's just, we'll see what happens with the Bradison Blackburn race.
Yes.
But it didn't work in Virginia.
No, it didn't. We are next door. We do share a border, small border, but it's open. They're pouring over into Virginia. It's horrible.
I suppose. During a raucous rally in Nashville, Mr. Trump invoked fears of crimes committed by illegal immigrants, particularly by the transnational gang MS-13, to argue for stricter border policies, including his long-promised wall, and charged that Democrats are standing in the way. They don't want the wall. They want open borders. They're more interested in taking care of criminals than they are in taking care of you. And other things along those lines. So, you know, it's fascinating that Trump is playing the cultural war card because policies don't work for the Republicans.
Yeah,
people don't really care all that much about that great tax break that was going to win the election because they don't really see it.
Yeah.
And so instead, they're going all out culture war. And on the Democratic side, a different story here.
We'll
cover after the break.
I'm glad that there's a different story. And he really doesn't have much choice. He doesn't know any of the policies. Even if there were any, he wouldn't know them. So I guess that's all he's got. And he hates scripts, and that's what he remembers. So I guess no surprise there. All right. Well,
polling data when we get back.
Excellent. Hang on for that. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hi, everybody. It's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com, and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We are back with Greg Dworkin. Time for some polling data, having wrapped up yesterday's most outrageous and stupid-sounding headlines. Did we, in talking about the Tennessee rally, was Diane Black actually at the rally?
I don't know.
Okay, I was just wondering about that when she was in the news yesterday. Of course, she's the Republican from Tennessee who decided that, I don't know in what context, but decided that she should actually open her mouth and let everybody know that she thought school shootings were caused by pornography, which is not the first person, I don't think, to say that, although not that many people actually say it. But her new twist was that the pornography that's corrupting all these kids was available at your local neighborhood grocery store, and I have been puzzled about which store that might be or what's going on in Tennessee. And I guess if there's porn in the grocery stores in Tennessee, that's something they want to take care of. She's
probably talking about, if you read the box, the nutritional content of children's breakfast food.
Is that pornography?
Absolute pornography.
I guess so. Sugar. Yum.
Sugar. It's
all know.
About sugar.
I guess so.
This is interesting. This is a look at broadcast TV ads airing between January 1st and May 16th.
Is there pornography in them?
Which was covered in USA Today. So Sean McElwee tweeted it and said, for all the talk about Democrats campaigning on Russia, they're mostly campaigning on healthcare, from a USA Today story. And this is a graph I'll read to you so that your listeners can hear it.
Up, down,
Democrats
up,
and Republicans offer different messages to voters in House races. Political parties ads by percentage of ads that mention topic. For the Democrats, healthcare, 53.3% of the ads are about healthcare. That's because your rates are going up, and they're blaming it on Republicans, as they should, because Trump is trying to sabotage the healthcare system, and that's a good deal of the reason why rates are going up. Okay. Anti-Trump is 43%, and social issues are 23%. So only a quarter of the ads are about social issues. The Democrats are not making this a culture war, but the Republicans are.
Okay.
For Republican ads, pro-Trump is 35.5, immigration is 34.3, and those are synonymous, by the way.
Yes.
And then taxes are 32, and those tax ads actually are from outside groups. So the Republicans are spending almost no money on taxes, but they split their message between taxes, immigration, and pro-Trump almost equally. Now, a reasonable person would look at that and say, oh my goodness, that must mean that they really don't know what their message is.
Well,
but of
why
course,
would
that's not how pundits look at it.
No.
Pundits look and say, oh, they're going all in on culture war, which they are.
Okay,
I mean, that's also true.
That's not inconsistent.
No. But the taxes stuff isn't working, so the Republicans themselves aren't doing that. And the idea that the Democrats are doing poorly in this is actually not necessarily true. There's a really terrific story by David Leonhardt in the New York Times about this, and about how actually they are running a very, very good populist campaign.
Oh, well.
They talk about Stacey Abrams and other people, Doug Jones. Democrats are running a smart populist campaign. Democratic candidates aren't obsessed with President Trump, and they aren't giving up on the white working class as irredeemably racist. They're running pocketbook campaigns that blast Republicans for trying to take health insurance from the middle class while bestowing tax cuts on the rich, charges that have the benefit of being true. And goes on to say the political scientist Theda Skopel is among the sharpest observers of modern American politics, having studied the Obama presidency, the Tea Party reaction, and now the Trump resistance. Skopel and her colleagues are tracking Trump-leaning areas in 4 swing states, and she too has been struck by the Democrats' relative unity. Media pundits and even social scientists want to look for some kind of ideologic divide, she told me. I don't see a huge set of divisions in the Democratic Party. They're all talking about economic issues. Doing so is smart because it helps Democrats send the most powerful message in politics. I'm on your side and my opponent isn't, which is, of course, the whole point of what Trump's trying to do at his rallies.
Yes.
Americans really are divided on abortion, guns, race, and other cultural issues, but they're remarkably progressive on economics. When Democrats talk about healthcare, education, and jobs, they can focus the white working class on the working class part of its identity rather than the white part. And Democrats can fire up their base at the same time. He calls it a smart move. That's what they're doing. It's been winning elections. And so what we need is a whole bunch of articles about how Democrats are in disarray.
I guess so. I mean, I'm not so sure about whether people will focus on the working class part of the identity, but you hope so.
Some will, some won't. Look, you only have to pick off some. You don't have to convince them all.
That is true. You can even miss on the majority of them, probably.
Now, at the same time, here's another poll here. This one is from the progressive group Priorities USA with a very interesting observation. And let me preface this by just taking a quick look at our House generic tracker. Okay. All right. Harvard-Harris has the Democrats at +7, Economist YouGov, Democrats +5. Reuters, for some reason, was published at +7, but Real Clear Politics picked +3 for the Democrats. Rasmussen is +1, CNN +3, and Pew Research +5. So right now they have the Democrats +4 in the generic ballot. However, a couple of things about that. So Priorities USA runs a poll, and they find something just a little bit different. They have the Democrats leading the generic ballot 43-38, 5-point lead. Not dissimilar from the average from Real Clear Politics. But, okay, Nick Gorovich tweets, the new Priorities USA poll shows what you miss when you only look at the generic ballot. And here's the important part. 50% want to elect more Democrats to be a check and balance on Trump. 38% want more Republicans to pass the Trump agenda.
Okay.
All right. So who are you going to vote for? Well, actually, that's half the populace wants more Democrats to be a check and balance on Trump. The other part of that, again, I think we talked about this last week, is Amy Walter's observation that the intensity of anti-Trump is double the intensity of pro-Trump. And that's why we've been seeing election results the way we've been seeing this entire special election season.
Yes.
So it's interesting. There's even more information from that Priorities USA poll. I didn't give you that, but if you click on the link that was in the tweet, you will. I'll just give it to you because it's easier. New poll and messaging guidance, voters' personal finances trump the national economy, which is not surprising. A new poll commissioned by Priorities USA shows Trump and Republicans in Congress are failing to convince voters that their economic policies are helping middle-class Americans. Relatively few voters say they're able to get ahead of the cost of living, and voters' experiences of increasing costs for health care and gasoline are washing out any benefit voters may have experienced from the new tax law. Just 1/3 of voters say the economic policies of Trump and GOP are helping them, their personal financial situation. And by wide margins, voters continue to say that Trump mainly looks after the economic interests of the wealthy and big corporations rather than the interests of ordinary people. So that's what Democrats are running on, and so far, they're doing okay.
Well, they're right. To the extent that they're running on that, it's obviously true, and I guess 2/3 of the people already believe it, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like if we just don't bother them, maybe it'll work, but
right.
Yeah.
Well, not bothering them is part of the deal here. I mean, I've always said that. Don't stick them in the eye with a stick.
Oh, well, that I don't mind doing.
Leave them alone.
Yeah, I said, but just show up and vote, people. But then they don't do it. So, because I don't know, maybe we could trade them a hamburger restaurant for it or something.
Yeah, something like that. And again, I am amazed, but not surprised, at the amount of punditry that says, look, the Korean summit might be back on. Obviously, what Trump is doing is working.
Oh. Yeah. Sure.
Oh, no. You see, because he's approaching this like a real estate deal where you walk away and then force the other side to the table.
Right.
Well, the North Koreans have their own reasons that have nothing to do with Trump about wanting this summit. Trump wants the summit for his own political, domestic reasons. Yeah. Certainly not thinking about the best interests of the United States. So whether this summit happens or it doesn't happen is unclear. There's a lot of pressure to get it done. But if it does get done, what does that mean? And what are the implications? And what do we get out of it? All the reports from the so-called teams that he sent out, because there's 3 different negotiating teams working on this, all say the North Koreans are really not interested in giving up their nukes. So what's the purpose of the summit? The burgers in
yes, a win.
Pyongyang? Is that it? That's what we get out of it, and Trump calls that a win?
Yes.
Okay, well, just checking.
Jobs in Pyongyang, which and that's a thing now. I mean, America is supposed to care a great deal about the Chinese jobs we saved with ZTE. So I assume, something in the neighborhood of maybe 40 people will work at a burger joint, a state-owned hamburger restaurant in North Korea, where who knows where they're even going to get that food, but okay.
Right. And then one last piece that I'll put up here before I go, and this was interesting because it's a follow-up on some of the stuff we were talking about on Monday from the Columbia Journalism Review. Lie, falsehood, what to call the president's words.
Okay.
And a lot of it is dumping on the New York Times because the Times is the preeminent media outlet in the country, and that's why everybody dumps on them.
Okay.
So Maggie Haberman said Trump told 2 demonstrable falsehoods this AM. One about his administration's policy of separating undocumented immigrant kids, including infants from their parents, which he tried again to claim wasn't his own policy. The other was falsely claiming his own aide didn't give a big briefing. Critics were appalled at Haberman's deliberate use of a term that falls somewhere short of lie, and the argument consumed political media conversations on Twitter for much of the weekend. Some defended her and the Times' judgment, but many impugned her credibility and accused her of being soft on the administration. Now, I've argued in the past we need to do away with euphemisms like racially charged when the president says something that's demonstrably racist.
Okay.
But debate over when to use the L word is nuanced. Liberal? No. Lie. Trump provides steady stream of untrue statements, but are all of them lies? And then they go over the Daniel Dale thing that we covered. If we journalists are going to present ourselves as arbiters of truth, we have to stick to what we know is true. And that means you don't always know that Trump meant it to be false. So whatever label journalists choose for the president's false statements, it's obvious Trump doesn't always tell the truth. After all, the Times opinion section, which has no compunction about calling him lies, kept a running tally of falsehoods through the fall, and then gives more stories about how people are covering this. What's in a name? We need to distinguish between a deflection, an exaggeration, and a straight-up lie from Brian Stelter, unreliable sources CNN. Case studies. While Dale argues there are differences between lies and falsehoods, he writes that making the right decision case by case means that a lie should be used a lot more than it is. Caught in a firestorm, Mediaites Joe DiPaolo talks about a roundup of reactions to Haberman's tweet. And Times Haberman and Julie Hirschfeld Davis themselves examine Trump's fondness for baseless stories of secret plots by powerful interests. Those are his conspiracy theories.
Yes.
And they call them baseless stories as opposed to lies. Trump's talk of conspiracies has also gained currency within a Republican Party establishment that once shunned it. So again, I go back to my overall big picture here. Yeah, Trump is a conspiracy theorist. He's an idiot. He's a moron. He lies. That's almost not the point. That's like a given now. Okay. Why are Republicans defending it and covering up for him? That's really the bigger question, because they're all tarred with this, and they're going to go down with him.
Okay, well, maybe they could be tagged as liars at the very least. They very often, well, not very often, but they do often know better. That's why it's so weird that
Trey Gowdy, says that, there's a lot to this FBI investigation. And the other person that said that was Judge Napolitano, also on Fox.
That's right, I did notice that.
Who said basically something very, very similar, that, it all makes sense. And, there's something to this. And I only say that. Here it is. It's a Maggie Haberman tweet. Judge Napolitano, who Trump likes, said what happened with the professor and informant re the campaign is, quote, standard operating procedure in intelligence gathering and criminal investigations. The importance of it is that they're on Fox. And so Gowdy and Napolitano told Fox News audiences that this is bullshit.
Well, I don't know what's going to happen to them. Maybe Putin will have them shot.
Yeah, they could be taken off the air. I don't know. And that's not going to stop Sean Hannity and other people from doing this. But you hear it. It gets out there. You might even confuse Vox voters. Who knows?
Well, you get in line. But okay.
Get in line. So that's the world as we see it at the moment. And that's the roundup for today. So tomorrow we'll do like half a show.
Yeah, I mean for you it'll be a whole show. For you. Yeah, I think so. I think we can make that work. I've picked out a couple of stories, and if we can, just so long as we don't go past the 10 o'clock break, we should be okay.
Well, I won't.
I know. Usually you don't. So I think it should be very comfortable for you, and your braces are already off, so you don't have to come along with us to the orthodontist.
Yeah, well, that's really putting your money where their mouth is, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's all gone now, and
so good luck with that, and
thank you.
I hope it doesn't come back to bite you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Right. Okay. Well, tomorrow we put my son on retainer. Okay.
I think we're done.
All right, that's enough. Show's over. Go on.
Oh wait! Since we had that, I do have to give you this last one, which I just thought was hilarious.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Yes.
And that is on history.
Yeah.
Right? Let me just give you the link here. Archaeologists working in the ancient Roman city of Pompeii.
Yes.
Okay, uncovered the remains of a 30-year-old man who appears to have survived the initial eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD, only to be killed when he was struck by a large slab of stone.
Yes.
And they have a picture accompanying this article, which doesn't look completely real. There it is, but there it is anyway. Okay.
Yeah. I think I saw somebody.
So there's a skeleton.
Yeah.
Where the top half of the skeleton is covered by a large square stone that apparently fell on him, and the bottom half you can see the skeleton's pelvis and legs caught in the lava.
Yeah.
Right. And it's this is a guy who escaped Vesuvius only to be hit by a stone.
Yeah.
between Scylla and Charybdis, or however that's pronounced. But what's so funny about it are the comments.
Oh, really?
Like, is he going to be okay?
No. I did see somebody's comment
he's responding to treatment. Let's start a GoFundMe for his medical bills.
That could be.
He lived in ancient Rome. He was fully insured. Caesar 2020. I mean, the whole thing is that it's all about healthcare. And so when you see one of these little cultural, let's, just have some fun making fun with Twitter, it all revolves on healthcare. And so the Democrats are absolutely right. That is the issue that people are running.
Wow, that's a roundabout argument.
But it's true. It's just what comes up spontaneously. Healthcare.
I guess so. Will Bunch might have commented on it. He says the original Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah, maybe. It is pretty funny, and the whole thing's pretty funny. But I'm looking at this and thinking, the Democrats are right to run on healthcare. That's what everybody's talking about.
I guess so. No one says too soon about this. Pompeii. It's not too soon. You can make this joke. Where did that block come from? I mean, did it fall off of a building? Was it there originally? Is it lava that formed over his head into a rock? I don't know.
It's been hanging in midair since 79 AD, and it just finally fell. I don't know. But talk about Wile E. Coyote. That's the way it works. Right. You run off a cliff and you just stand there for a while before you fall. So I
were
guess
the archaeologists who were?
I'm telling you, this whole thing is about healthcare. It is just a quick Rorschach into how the public sees things. You see this picture, and they talk about healthcare. The Democrats are right to run on it. I'll leave you with that, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, very good. Be aware of any large rocks
and volcanoes, and do not roast marshmallows.
This guy was probably on his way to tell people.
Trouble. That's probably why the U.S. Geological Survey is saying that in the first place.
Be. Or he was on his way to warn others. No, the marshmallows, don't do it now. Whoa. And for 1,000 years, that remained a secret. Okay, thanks very much, Greg. You should all see this photo. I have a feeling you may have. It was all the rage on Twitter yesterday, and it only looks more Wile E. Coyote-ish, because, of course, it has been excavated by archaeologists. And so they've excavated around the bones, which makes it, look more like an impression of the body made into the rock, like Wile E. Coyote would, or the Roadrunner would run through brick walls or stone cliff faces and leave an outline of themselves as they did it. So it only looks like more ridiculous, but because enough time has passed, we can all make jokes about this. Although I'm curious whether the archaeologists who were doing the excavating ever, were they just serious and concentrating on their work, or were they looking over their shoulders all the time? Like, is the building that this rock fell from still standing? Presumably no. Presumably it fell down in 79 AD or whenever it was. But that's disappointing, I'm sure. And I wonder whether there was any sense of accomplishment at having survived initially, or whether maybe it was a suicide. Everybody I know is dead. They're encased in ash and lava. I'm just going to pull this rock down on my head. I doubt very much that was the case, but what a disappointment. His arms are not visible in all this. I wonder if they are up by, the skull, like, oh no, covering up his head and crushed. Well, I don't know. I guess the lesson is just forget it, give up, and let the volcano kill you, I guess. I wonder how he survived that. No indication, I'm sure, of that from the archaeological study, but it was, I don't know, it's telling in some way. That's all I can tell you. And it's time now to tell you about a number of other issues now looming out there. Let's see, some things I opened up. I mentioned to you that there was the story of the lunatic from one of several lunatics from Tennessee. Hunter wrote the story up for us on the front page of Daily Kos in case somehow you didn't notice this story. Tennessee Representative Diane Black says school shootings are caused by pornography. How one leads to the other, I'm not entirely sure. I'm actually kind of curious to know what her thinking is on it, but I'm afraid I'll just be disappointed. I'll read into it and then it'll turn out that there isn't any thinking. It's just pornography in her mind is bad, and so are shootings, so it was probably pornography what done it. But Hunter will at least make it entertaining as we read through it, and he puts it this way. It is now customary after each new mass shooting in America for Republican lawmakers to blame the shooting on absolutely anything in the nation, except for widespread access to guns. We have therefore learned that shootings are caused by abortions, by Ritalin, by video games, and by having too many doors. We learned that one in the last round in Santa Fe, Texas. Tennessee Representative Diane Black, however, believes the real culprit is pornography. And he's grabbing it here from the Huffington Post. This quote, it's available on the shelf when you walk into the grocery store. That's what made the quote so absurd. I mean, I think I've seen it blamed on pornography before, and it also didn't make sense. But the grocery store part is the new twist. I mean, to make it into the news next time, you'll have to be like, it's pornography. Every time I walk into the dry cleaners, there's porn all over the place, and then you'll make the papers too. Yeah, you have to reach up to get it, but there's pornography there, she continued. All of this is available without parental guidance. I think that is a big part of the root cause. So I'm a little bit curious to know whether she means like, you know, what you and I probably would think of as pornography, like, you know, X-rated movies or magazines or something like that. And then I thought, well, maybe she's talking about, you know, the magazines like Playboy or something, which I don't think really qualify, to my mind, wouldn't qualify as pornography per se. But it's not for kids. But I could see maybe in the mind of a Tennessee Republican congresswoman that would count as pornography. And I wouldn't really necessarily be interested in arguing about it. It doesn't help me any to have that argument, except that isn't available in the grocery stores either, I don't think. I mean, maybe she's doing her grocery shopping at a convenience store where they sometimes do have magazines for sale, I guess, and probably something else as well. I got no idea, but I doubt it. I mean, that's probably not what's going on in her neighborhood, and I'm just trying to think of, like, what is she thinking? And then I thought, maybe she's so, you know, backwards and dowdy and dopey as a white Republican lady from Tennessee that she thinks like Cosmopolitan magazine, which I think is very frequently on sale at grocery stores in the aisles, because you'll be sitting there with your kids and they want to have, you know, they're interested, of course, in looking at the candy, and we want that. And I'm sure somewhere along the line, somebody once told Diane Black a story about how they were at the supermarket with their kids, and they looked up and they happened to, you know, maybe they were learning to read and just interested and inquisitive, or just their eyes were wandering and they saw Cosmopolitan magazine and they said, you know, hey, Mommy, do you know the top 5 sex tips for an explosive orgasm? What? No, that's pornography. I don't know whether that's what happened. And you don't really have to reach up very high. Maybe if you're very short to get a Cosmopolitan magazine, but by no one's definition, really, even a Tennessee Republican white Congress lady isn't really going to say that's pornography if she's pushed on it. But she doesn't have to be, because she's just going to say this thing and we'll all laugh and point and make her Twitter famous for having said so. Anyway, let's see what else is in the article and what Hunter has to say about it. Black's claim raises many, many questions, none of which she seems eager to answer, so I guess we're not getting anywhere on this. Porn is available in grocery stores now? And why would seeing pictures of naked people cause someone to commit mass murder? It depends on the person, both the person with the gun and the person in the picture as well. I don't know that it would move me to mass murder, but for instance, a naked picture of Donald Trump would certainly cause me to commit something, possibly suicide, or at the very least commit myself to a mental institution, possibly, or maybe just, you know, nausea and vomiting. Anyway, why do the citizens of other nations in which pornography is available not commit mass shootings? That's a good question. Does Diane Black know what pornography actually is? And that's another valid question. Is Diane Black, to use the customary term for these things, stupid? And is this now a prerequisite for Republican office holders, or merely a side effect of culling anyone from the party who is not willing to adhere to an increasingly ridiculous list of required conspiracy theories and inside-out policy pronouncements. The problem here is that we, the general public, are supposed to take Diane Black seriously, despite Diane Black giving us no evidence why we ever should. And nuts to that, because if Diane Black wants to say that the pornographies or the video games or the avocado toast leads to mass shootings, then she should either back up this novel worldview with something a bit more substantive than here is a list of things I do not like, which I shall now match Mad Libs style to any question posed to me, or we as a nation get to insult her. But fine, let's play, and since it has been such a crappy, and he does not use that term, month, no reason to sugarcoat things. Is it not equally possible that the reason for mass shootings in America today, when all is said and done, is Diane Black? It's a good question, a fair one, I think, at that. Not her alone, of course, but Republican lawmakers in general. You can draw a direct correlation between escalating NRA rhetoric and escalating gun violence. Perhaps the willingness of our politicians to back the premise that every American has the, quote, right to murder 20 people quickly if on any given morning they decide over breakfast that today is the day such an act is needed, and has a lot more to do with eager murderers taking them up on the offer than all of the nation's pornographic magazines, clips, or excessive door construction combined. Okay, very funny. The magazines / clip story. We don't know because Republicans barred any research that would even ask the question. That's largely true. And it could just as easily be because she does not keep her lawn green and mowed. One or the other, maybe both. And if she's not willing to take to the deaths of her fellow Americans seriously, take those deaths seriously, then we're not the slightest bit obliged to pretend she is serious. Just go away, Diane Black. Just leave already. Please do. We'll be right back. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Just a brief 1-minute break and we are back. And let's see, cleaning things up. Let's take a look in the comments section. And it's always wise to read the comments section. It's particularly wise here on the Kagro in the Morning Show. Just, let's see, Arliss Bunny commenting on the last article. Peanut butter is available on the shelves of grocery stores nationwide too. And that's that's dangerous. There's a lot of people deathly allergic to peanuts, and they'll kill you just as surely as guns can, I suppose, if you're allergic enough. And there's probably peanut butter porn out there as well. I don't know. I understand that there's something for everyone on the internet. I don't know. Are we now banning all peanut-related products to protect kids from being gunned down in schools? Guess what? We are. That's not the reason, but try bringing a peanut-related product into school anywhere. Really, just about any school, and you'll be shown the door rather quickly if they find out. However, in certain states, bringing a gun would be welcome. That's really true. So I don't know if that was the point you were trying to make, but you may have accidentally made it, or you might have been extraordinarily clever in luring me into making it for you. After all, you were limited in the number of characters available to you, as the comment came in via Twitter. Michael Musson says, I like volcanic eruption survivors that don't get crushed by rocks. Sad. Good. In tune with the times. Very nice. By the way, he also adds the latest offer from North Korea is throwing a few trademark approvals for Ivanka. And sure, why not? It worked for China. I think it would be wise of North Korea to do so. And that's the reason why they'll be opening Ivanka Burger in North Korea. And that might not even be a joke because, of course, yesterday we learned that a lot of Ivanka's trademarks that had been offered to her or granted to her had to do with things that you never thought Ivanka Trump was involved in the first place, right? There was snack products we learned about yesterday. We didn't learn what those snacks were. Spices, also something we very rarely associate with Ivanka Trump. And then somewhat more troubling, just sort of socially speaking, was bleaching products. And that wasn't troubling at the time because I thought, bleaching products? You mean like hair bleach? I mean, that's, has its implications, but I think it's generally accepted as a practice. Well, here in the United States, but that doesn't matter because we're talking about things that are getting marketed in China. And then Judy Vincent chimed in all the way from Hawaii, where I guess they might have, that may be, given their proximity out there on the Pacific Rim, maybe it occurred to her more quickly in contact with more Asian cultures. Though we're pretty heavily Asian around here as it happens, but I don't know this from being surrounded by Taekwondo studios and Asian markets or anything. I mean, we do have a very heavily Korean and Indian population around here, and Chinese really, but actually they're not as large a population as the others. But bleaching products, apparently, she writes me, that are trademarked by Ivanka are skin bleaching products used to lighten the skin. She says very popular in Asia, where whiter equals better is a cultural phenomenon there. And I guess that hadn't occurred to me, but it certainly appears to be true. And she has some articles to back it up. I thought I might share it with you just by way of like, hey, that's good information. I don't know that it's going to come up in a lot of contexts, but it's real interesting. And I guess it fits right alongside that other cultural phenomenon or cultural observation anyway, even if it's wrong, that was made in the New York Times articles we read through yesterday about those trademarks and how or why Ivanka Trump is so widely admired, allegedly, in China. And it was because she is wealthy and attractive. And those are good things in China. I mean, they're good things everywhere, really, largely. But, we're not off the hook by any means. I mean, absolutely, in America, being wealthy and attractive is an enormous advantage, and it's one everybody hopes for. And it's one to which people are inordinately attracted. And so should come as no surprise that human beings who happen to live in a different part of the globe also think so. Also, I mean, skin whitening, I think it enjoys somewhat less popularity, I guess, here in the United States, but that's probably largely because, in the United States, people with darker skin are still, largely speaking, in the minority, whereas in Asia, people who are Asian are the majority. Now, and there's this whole, they're relatively light-skinned relative to those of, say, African heritage or Indian heritage or various other places that I might be forgetting. But apparently it's a big deal. And here's what we have by way of backup. It was just interesting to me. And she sent me, Judy did, the Quora.com discussion of the question, why are skin whitening creams popular across Asia? Does skin color really matter there? And I mean, I imagine skin color appears to really matter pretty much everywhere, so it shouldn't come to us as a surprise that, well, in Asia, despite the fact that it's a different part of the world and populated by humans who are not us, they do have the same hang-ups. And a lot of that is probably driven by our having exported at least certain parts of our culture to them. But they probably also came to this conclusion all by themselves as well. So here's the question. If you, what does it say here? Why are skin whitening creams popular across Asia? Does skin color really matter there? I don't know how authoritative the answers are, but there are two, and they seem to draw on a wide range of resources and other. Let's take a look. Skin whitening products, says one person, have become popular throughout Asia as a result of beauty standards in the region. Well, of course. Ancient China and India were the two main cultural, political, and economic powers in the Asian region during the ancient times. Both China and India influenced many of the cultures of the East, South, and Southeast Asia. As a result of that, beauty standards promoted in the ancient cultures of China and India spread across the regions of East, South, and Southeast Asia. Okay, fine, fair enough so far. It's often said that the high class, the upper classes, I guess, would stay indoors and I guess therefore possess fair skin. To the extent that that's actually true, I don't know, but that I could see that being said widely, while the lower and working classes who worked out in the fields would have dark skin. They certainly would get darker from being outside, and maybe that could certainly be at the root of what was happening, even though it's not necessarily an accurate reflection of genetics. But this is the 15th century, apparently, because following the colonization of many Asian countries beginning in the 15th century, fair skin in Asia developed a new meaning, which was associated with race. Even newer beauty standards developed following Western imperialism, including the Pan-Asian/Eurasian look, which became popular throughout the region in the 1990s and early 2000s. How about that? As fair skin is a major beauty ideal in Asia, and really in a lot of places, it is promoted via the media, through advertisements and the entertainment and modeling industries. The popularity of Bollywood throughout Asia has meant that fair-skinned men and women are idolized by many Asians. Bollywood celebrities have also been recruited for commercials selling skin whitening products to make consumers feel that they need to buy those products to feel beautiful. Korean pop culture, how about that? K-pop, in the form of Korean dramas and K-pop music, have also meant that fair skin has been promoted. Korean dramas and K-pop have a huge following throughout Asia, a phenomenon known as the Korean wave. Even beyond East Asia, where individuals tend to have lighter skin, Korean dramas and K-pop have become influential on beauty-conscious consumers in Southeast Asia and parts of South Asia where people tend to have darker skin. Korean skincare has become very popular in many Asian countries, and products that claim to make skin brighter and fairer are plentiful. Skin whitening commercials and billboards are also found across Asia and reinforce the idea that whiter is better. And a few examples are included here, and I have to take their word for it because they're written in this case, Japanese. So I can't help you with that one, but it certainly seems to have a lot to do with skin creams and a very light-skinned person smiling and presumably endorsing them. Here, this is the next one here, a poster for an Indian skin whitening product produced by The Body Shop, the American brand. So they're in the game too. And let's see, followed by that, Laneige, Laneige, I'm guessing, a popular Korean skincare brand in Asia, and a symbol of the growing popularity of Korean skincare in particular, I guess. Pictured above their skin whitening product in the ad for that particular brand. Next up, a wacky-looking ad to me, Kathy Doll. That's the name of a Thai skin whitening product for both men and women, which is also sold in other parts of Southeast Asia. And there's it's co-branded with 7-Eleven down in the corner there. So get your pharmaceuticals at 7-Eleven. That sounds like a great idea. Kathy Doll, always throwing the American lingo onto the box helps quite a bit usually, almost anywhere. In Southeast Asia and certain other parts of Asia, a newer ideal promoting a mixed appearance, as it says, popularly known as the Pan-Asian or Eurasian look, has also become popular. However, unlike fair skin, the Eurasian look propagates the blend of Eastern and Western features, including fair skin. The beauty ideal is very popular in Southeast Asia, especially in Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. Billboards showcasing Eurasian faces are also found in Hong Kong, Japan, and Sri Lanka. In regards to its popularity in Singapore, and to some extent Malaysia, advertisers say that the Eurasian look, locally known as Pan-Asian, is good for the Singaporean and Malaysian public, as both countries are blends of different ethnic groups, primarily Chinese, Malays, and Indians. As a result of that, advertisers say the Eurasian face can appeal to all Singaporeans or Malaysians because they possess features that all three ethnic groups can relate to. That is kind of interesting. I don't know how true it is, but sounds like it might be. Eurasian faces can look partially Chinese, Indian, or Malay, depending on who's looking at it, and that's what makes them appealing for some advertisers. This ideal became very popular and prevalent throughout Asia during the 1990s and early 2000s. Many VJs on MTV Asia and Channel V Asia were of Eurasian descent, and some people working in the entertainment industry, such as in Singapore, even got plastic surgery to make themselves look mixed. The rise in popularity of the Eurasian look in Asia even led to Time magazine releasing an article about it in their magazine, because that's where they would release it if they were Time magazine. Then featured here the April 23rd, 2001, going way back, issue of Time magazine in Asia. Very interesting. The headline of that edition, all mixed up. Haha. Half Asian, half Caucasian, and 100% cool. Why Eurasians are the new face of Asia. I won't deal with the larger implications of that one, but I think that pretty much sums it up, and I thought it was a very interesting answer. There's more to it, of course, both in terms of the answers themselves and the mysteries of the cultural aspects of skin whitening creams. I don't know that it's a business. I mean, that a political family ought not to be getting into that any business at all, or at least the president's family normally. But of course, these aren't normal times. I probably would have avoided that one. But remember, Ivanka Trump comes from a prominent family of imperialist racists, and so I guess it stands to reason. I think I would have been satisfied with the snack and spices line, but as you know, they're money-grubbing bastards, and I guess they'll take it wherever they can find it. A very interesting window, though, into the business line that they're involved in, the willingness of the family to endorse almost anything in exchange for money, and what's going on mentally in the minds of Pan-Asian consumers and what we might be doing to screw them up. And it might not be all our fault, by the way, or even Ivanka Trump's, for that matter. Just an interesting observation. Thank you, Judy, for sharing that with us. It's one of the esoteric little bits that we can add to the show here and make it worth stopping in on Kagro in the morning every once in a while. Let's see. Another news story floating around at the moment that I happened to see go by and I wanted to grab, and I always see it in The Hill because The Hill does such a great job of marketing to me on Twitter. So I grabbed this piece by Josh Delk, New York City Taxi King. Remember this guy? He got a better plea deal after the FBI raid on Cohen's office. That sounded intriguing. I thought I'd check in on this. CNN is reporting that Evgeny Gene Friedman, described as a New York City taxi king, although for whatever reason, typo, it says here taxi ding, which is also a thing, but not probably how Evgeny refers to himself or asks other people to refer to him. Taxi king is probably it. Anyway, Evgeny received a better plea deal from prosecutors after the FBI raid on the home and offices of Michael Cohen, an attorney for President Trump. Let's see if we can find out why. Friedman, who runs one of the country's largest taxi businesses, the proofreading guy, I guess, is out today because it says Friedman, who runs one of the country's largest taxi businesses in the country, because that's where you have to do it if you're going to be one of the largest in the country. You got to be in the country in order to win that title. Well, Friedman will take a new deal offered by Manhattan prosecutors that does not require he serve time in prison, according to CNN. Friedman faces criminal charges for tax evasion. The new deal came after the raid, which was related to special counsel Robert Mueller's probe into the 2016 election. It also appeared to be linked to Cohen's payment to an adult film actress who allegedly had an affair with Trump. Have you heard that story? The businessman had previously rejected a deal from the prosecutors in March that required he spend between 2 and 6 years in prison and repay $1 million of the $5 million that he owes in back taxes. Friedman pleaded guilty to criminal tax evasion last week, but will now be spared prison time in exchange for repaying the full $5 million sum. As part of the deal, Friedman has also agreed to cooperate as a potential witness with federal authorities investigating Russia's interference in the 2016 election. as first reported by the New York Times. Cohen, a former Trump Organization attorney, is a client of Friedman in his own taxi medallion business and reportedly owes over $280,000 in unpaid taxes himself. So no answers in this. I don't know whether the CNN story dives into it any further, but I guess the implication, I guess, is supposed to be like what? That when they had him nailed and they were going to put him in jail for 2 to 5 years, he gave them information that led perhaps to the raid of Cohen's office. And since they got good info, they are repaying him for that by taking jail time off the table. But it's not clearly stated that that's it. And it may end up having nothing whatsoever to do with it. Oh, auto-playing video because CNN. Hang on here. Let's see. Taxi King gets a better plea deal. We know that. Kara Scannell has written this one up and appears to be presenting it on the air here in the auto-playing video. Anything new, like why this is the case? The no prison deal was a significant enhancement from an offer Friedman rejected on April 4th, just a few days before the Cohen raid. Like they're implying that they went to him and said, here's what we got for you. The deal we'll offer you is 2 to 5 years in prison plus $1 million repayment. And he says no. And the implication, I guess, is supposed to be by, splashing the Cohen name in there is, well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you, I'll give you dirt, essentially, on Michael Cohen that'll be useful for the Mueller probe or some related probe. And remember that the Cohen stuff was handled by the Southern District of New York and not the Mueller people. But I'll give you something on Michael Cohen if you take prison off the table. But at the same time, the repayment deal changed. So, like, for instance, if you offered 2 to 5 years in prison plus $1 million fine, and he says no, and you come back without, I don't want to do jail. Well, they may or may not say, agree to that without something special. Or they might agree and say, well, if you pay all $5 million back, we'll let you skip the prison time. I could see a prosecutor possibly making that deal, even without anything to do with Michael Cohen. So I don't know. I'm a little skeptical here. Look at this. There's a little bit more explanation here. On April 4th, he rejected this deal. That was a few days before the raid, which, is circumstantial evidence that they might have had something to do with one another. That had minimum of 2 years, as much as 6 years, 2 to 6 years in prison and $1 million fine. The offer included a sliding scale, though. If Friedman paid less than $1 million, he would face more jail time. I don't know if it slid in the other direction, though, right? If it's sliding scale up to, if you pay your $5 million, we'll let you out of jail, or whether it's just some jail time is mandatory, and you can pay us $1 million and go 2 to 6. Or if you pay $500,000, like you say, oh, I don't have the money. Well, then it's 3 to 8. I'm not really sure. The offer included a sliding scale. If Friedman paid less than the $1 million, he would face more jail time. Friedman had faced as much as 25 years in prison when he was charged last year. The investigation by U.S. prosecutors in Manhattan was initiated in part by a referral from the special counsel, Robert Mueller. FBI agents working with Mueller have interviewed several business partners of Cohen as part of Mueller's broader inquiry into election meddling. Friedman's cooperation in the deal suggests he has useful information for prosecutors and could place added pressure on Cohen, who has been Trump's attorney, sort of, for a decade, to cooperate with authorities. The initial offer and subsequent enhancement has not been previously reported. New York investigators made the initial offer in late March. When Friedman rejected the deal at a hearing 2 weeks later, John Healy, a lawyer with the State Attorney General's office, told Justice Peter Lynch, the offer is withdrawn. We don't intend to make any offers, and we are ready to come to trial, June 18th. But days later, on April 9th, FBI agents working with the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan raided Cohen's home, office, hotel room, and safe deposit box, seizing several boxes of documents and over a dozen electronic devices. Prosecutors have not said anything publicly about the raid being the impetus for a better deal. So it's all implied here. important to keep in mind. All right, anything else that we need to mine from this one? Another mention of the fact that Cohen's taxi medallion holding companies owe New York more than $280,000 in unpaid taxes. That Stormy Daniels money could have gone a long way towards paying that, making those arrears right. But okay, let's see. Anything else? Cohen hasn't been charged with any wrongdoing, I guess, to this point, but his lawyers have been fighting in court to limit the government's review of the seized material. There was Judge Kimball Wood's appointment of a special master to review the material. I guess we're still waiting on word from that. And anything else? Let's see. The Stormy Daniels situation is mentioned. No, that's really about it. So, okay, another moving part to watch, and we'll keep an eye on that one. Also, by way of follow-up on previous stories, before we head into our third break, I thought I might share some input from our listeners, and in particular, listener friends who on Daily Kos you may know as SF Bay, that is San Francisco Bay Transplant. But having listened to the show, when we discussed the jungle primary in California the other day, the disclaimer, of course, here, I'm not an expert, as I am a transplant, but some interesting information, including some Wikipedia entries on the jungle primary, some sources in the LA Times, and Real Clear Politics, the Sacramento Bee, and the American Interest as well, along with some excerpts from the Atlantic that basically tell us this. Let's see, is this one from the American Interest? That's the last link given before this clip here. The biggest lesson of the top two in California, top two primary, is the political interest groups that dominate a polity, when faced with a reform to the power structure, will seek to take advantage of it. And in California's Democrat-dominated politics, when 54% of voters choose to move from a multi-party first-past-the-post primary system to an open top-two blanket primary system, another term for it, they inadvertently institutionalized a mechanism for the politically dominant Democratic Party to get its preferred candidate into office regardless of how moderate or extreme they were. Those two terms, of course, enclosed in air quotes. This, importantly, subverted the original goal of the open primary system, and so should be a cautionary tale for reformers, particularly those in deep blue or even in deep red states who would like to mimic California's open primary system to some degree. This is not to say that some reform of the state party primary systems isn't necessary, but reformers should make sure those reforms don't backfire in spectacular fashion. At any rate, we also learn that this system was voted in by the initiative Proposition 14 in 2010, taking full effect in 2014, so it is a fairly recent phenomenon. That was one of my questions as well. And also, by the way, initiatives, another pretty notable Californian phenomenon, wherein, of course, interest groups with enough money to blanket the state with their idea can get voters behind that idea and bypass the legislature. Bottom line here, offered up as to the top two primary, I hate it. It keeps incumbents in power by generating a fear of voting for the candidate of choice versus the most established party member. It's certainly a likely byproduct of it, right? It might be different if we had ranked choice voting statewide, which ultra-liberal San Francisco does use in board and mayoral elections, to the extent that even competing mayoral candidates, Mark Leno and Jane Kim, for example, are joining forces to encourage their voters to vote for the other as a second choice. Very interesting. Thank you for filling us in on that one, and at least not only giving us those insights, but answering the concrete question of just when did this whole thing start? Because I was pretty unclear on it, and I'm glad to have that answer. I'm glad to have an answer. I don't care about whether that was the answer or not. I'm satisfied with finding out what the truth of it is, no matter how it happened. Okay, let's see. We are. We're right up against our third break. Music pending. There it is. Let's see. And I will use the upcoming break to scan for, well, what I'm going to say is the most important story of the day that we haven't touched on yet, but I will give you something regardless, even if I misidentify the most important one. And so I'll be juggling between whether to blurt out the exciting stuff or save it for tomorrow or what. We'll find out how that decision came out after this break. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching Kagro X or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Confused as to which direction to go next, but I guess I'll go with the breaking news. It really is truly breaking. The whole thing is broken. First I saw a tweet, now I see an article. Did we mention this? I know we may have mentioned it in passing, but I don't want to get to the main story of the Russian dissident reporter who apparently is named Arkady Babchenko. Arkady Babchenko was, up until moments ago, billed as a Russian dissident reporter who had feared for his life. He was anti-Putin and fled to Ukraine, which is not a great place necessarily to flee to if you're looking to get out of the sphere of influence within which Vladimir Putin can have you eliminated. But that was the deal. And he fled to Ukraine and he was shot dead in his apartment, and everybody wondered, gee whiz, what could this have been about? Well, we were all wondering that and scratching our heads about it. We all were pretty sure we knew exactly what had gone on here, but hold your horses or anything else you might have to hold, because Arkady's not dead. What is this about? Well, let's see. First I saw here the tweet of Max Sedin, who is the Moscow correspondent for FT, Financial Times, I believe, who says, so Arkady Babchenko, the Russian dissident reporter who was murdered yesterday, is not dead, i.e. not murdered. Ukrainian secret services just paraded him before the cameras on live TV. It was a setup. That's what he says. Dear God. And I would follow things up that way, too. Bet you didn't see this late season finale twist in year 4 of the Russia-Ukraine war. Apparently the whole thing was staged so that they could catch the people who ordered the hit. And it is normal because Sherlock Holmes did it. And I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, but the linked tweets are all in Russian, or at least a language using Cyrillic lettering. I don't know whether that's Ukrainian or what, but I can't read that. So I'll share with you instead the Associated Press story on the subject, generously shared with us / aggregated by TPM. Reportedly killed Russian journalist appears at news conference in Ukraine. Complete with a photo of, I guess it was supposed to be a memorial photo of him pondering the absurdity of it all, I guess, stroking his chin. And now that makes a lot more sense now that he's alive. And it wasn't that, I don't think it was that he was shot but survived the assassination attempt. Let's find out what the hell's going on here. And nothing is the answer, because all we have from the AP is Russian journalist Arkady Babchenko was reportedly killed in Kiev, shows up at a news conference in Ukraine and probably also in Kiev. And I guess what I'm taking away from Max Sedin's tweets is that I guess he was perhaps suspected. It was suspected that he was targeted for assassination by Putin, and that the Ukrainian secret services, as they are referred to here, set up a fake assassination of some sort to see if they could root out and catch the assassins who were, I guess, at that point, rumored to be in Kiev on a mission to kill him. No word on whether or not they were able to do that. And wow, well, that's an exciting and interesting development. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. So I guess I'll scrap this story about the murdered dissident journalist in Kiev. I was probably going to skip it anyway, but toss that one straight out of the pile, I guess. That's just right out at this point. All right, let's see. I was going to share the other day, and maybe I should hop over to this one to see whether there's any good connective tissue on the Taxi King and see if we can figure out exactly what the relationship was. I have it here from forward.com, which is not a source I love a lot. I'm a little wary of anything, to be honest, from the Forward. They don't have a terrific history. But I grabbed this piece and an author by the name of Ben Frachtenberg, exclusive, Michael Cohen's Trump organization, Trump org emails tied to crooked Taxi King. This is, I guess, why the relationship was close enough to be of interest to investigators on the Russiagate side of things. Michael Cohen's use of his Trump organization email to conduct his taxi business. And this really, at this point, this part of the story goes to Michael Cohen's sloppy practices as an attorney. And this is how all of this grows out of the Stormy Daniels thing. All of these things should be separate scandals, but they are all ending up on the public record because in large part because Michael Cohen was sloppy and lazy and not a very good attorney and left behind breadcrumbs that allow good attorneys to make arguable, legal, logical connections between one area of his own criminality and other areas of his own criminality, plus the criminality of his accomplices, some of whom are inside the Trump organization and some of whom are outside. This is Michael Cohen's own corruption here, and really, to some extent, Donald Trump is actually correct in saying, hey, what he does is his own business. It doesn't involve me. The fact that he may have been involved in shady dealings with taxi medallions doesn't reflect on me at all. I don't know whether that's really true, and it may be that a good deal, it may be that Donald Trump also invested in taxi medallions through Michael Cohen, but nobody's alleging that at the moment. And ordinarily you would say, yeah, there's no logical connection here, you would say to the judge and say, let's leave Donald Trump out of it. But the problem is that Michael Cohen is so sloppy, he does things that leave doors open to allow further probing of his other clients. And in this case, the only one that matters, the Trump organization. What did he do? Michael Cohen's use of his Trump organization email to conduct his taxi business has become more legally significant after his former medallion manager, Evgeny Friedman, agreed to work with federal prosecutors as part of a plea deal, according to experts and reports. This, by the way, May 23rd, so end or middle of last week, I guess we learned about that. And today we know what the details of the plea agreement with respect to jail time and repayments actually are. So all of this is because public records obtained exclusively by the Forward, how do you like that, show that Cohen used his Trump email on multiple occasions to conduct business for his New York Funky Taxi Corporation medallion, which Friedman managed since at least 2012. Cohen's taxi dealings were a part of records seized by federal investigators after they raided his home and office. So I guess at least one of the medallions that Cohen owned, he actually went out of his way and made a separate corporation for that, which is what he should have done for so many of the things he was dealing in. but then he got lazy. New York Funky Taxi Corporation. Very clever. David Shapiro, a financial crimes expert and former FBI forensics investigator, told the Forward that Cohen's use of the TrumpOrg.com, that's clever, right? And it's not Trump.org, TrumpOrg, TrumpOrganization.com. His use of a TrumpOrg.com address, this is the problem, makes it much harder for him to argue that he was only acting in a legal capacity for the company. Shapiro said that it potentially exposes other members of the Trump Organization to federal investigations if Friedman testifies against Cohen. In other words, look, if Michael Cohen had illegal business dealings with Evgeny Friedman and his taxi medallions, what does that have to do with Donald Trump or any Trump for that matter? Ordinarily, you'd say nothing. But what happens in court now is, well, you were managing it on your Trump Organization time and with Trump Organization resources. Arguably now, investigators could say, we need to see much more of the hidden books and other things that go on behind the scenes at the Trump Organization, because this now obviously criminal arrangement with the taxi medallions is being coordinated from out of the Trump Organization. And Michael Cohen will say, no, it's not. It was something I was doing on my own. I happened to work for the Trump Organization, but I was in my own office at the time. I just happened to use an email that, it's one of a dozen email addresses that I have. I accidentally, he could claim, used the wrong one. Well, maybe, but that's something you'll have to try and convince the court of, and I'm not certain that they're going to buy it with you. But on its face, it says a very different thing and tells a very different story. In other words, that the Trump Organization was either financially interested in those medallions and everything that they were being used for, or Michael Cohen was improperly using Trump Organization resources to conduct this illegal business, and he should have been found out and fired by the Trump Organization a long time ago. And I guess they'd probably be happy with almost either of those outcomes, although it would be best if they could just, use that to pry open the books at the Trump Organization. So that's the deal. And also, of course, we have this problem. If he wants to get out from underneath that problem that he's created for the Trump Organization, then he's going to have to say, yeah, what I was doing at that point was conducting my own business. Even though I accidentally did it in my Trump Organization email, I was conducting my own business, not practicing law. I wasn't representing the Trump Organization in my capacity as an attorney in these conversations. Now, if you do that, well, then you destroy a lot of claims of attorney-client privilege, too, right? I mean, how much of now we have to sort it all out. If you just flip a switch in your own mind as between whether you're acting as a business person or an attorney at any given moment, I don't know how much leeway we can give you with your claims of attorney-client privilege. It can't just be turned on and off after the fact as a matter of convenience to avoid scrutiny of illegal activity. So, where were we? David Shapiro, financial crimes expert and former FBI forensics investigator, right? Says he's conducting business. He's not practicing law. There's a potential conspiracy charge against the Trump Organization. I am really astounded by the sloppiness of it all. It's so careless. I agree. Shapiro added that investigators could now more easily subpoena all of Cohen's Trump Organization emails going back a decade when records show he started to conduct his taxi business with that address. And that's a fairly simple and straightforward one, right? We've caught you dead to rights, Evgeny Friedman anyway, involved in this illegal taxi business or, whatever, conducting business illegally in an improper fashion while managing this taxi business. One of the people whose medallions you were managing was Michael Cohen's. Michael Cohen was emailing you about that business in ways that may implicate him in a crime and doing it from TrumpOrg.com emails. And so at the very least, you now have to say, well, for how long did Michael Cohen know about this activity and to what extent was he involved? I'm going to need to see all of his emails about the taxi business, and certainly emails to Evgeny Friedman from whatever email account they were sent. And since we already have evidence that at least some of them came from trumporg.com, I'm just basically going to have to see everything that Michael Cohen sent out from trumporg.com for the entirety of the period during which he did business with Friedman, just to see if there's any more evidence out there about his knowledge of any wrongdoing at Friedman's business. And if that review is conducted by someone who may also say along the way, oh, hey, by the way, here is some material of interest to the Russia investigation, doesn't help me with the taxi thing, well, they may have some legal battles ahead of them, but at least those battles can get started in ways that they would never have been able to get started otherwise had he not been so sloppy. That's the big story here. So, as we said, now that they can get a look at Cohen's Trump Organization emails going back a decade, who knows what they'll find. Cohen, however, downplayed his connection to Friedman in a last Wednesday tweet. I am one of thousands of medallion owners who entrust management companies to operate my medallions according to the rules of the New York City Taxi and Limousine Commission. Gene Friedman and I are not partners and have never been partners in this business or any other. Well, we'll see about that. But a similar dodge like we were finding from Ivanka the other day. Isn't this a conflict of interest, Ivanka? Well, look, people get patents and trademarks all the time. Yeah, I know, but isn't the way you got it under these circumstances a conflict of interest? Well, the answer is businesses have trademarks. Well, that's not actually an answer. Okay, what about you, Michael Cohen? Were you involved in this business as a employee of the Trump Organization or not? And the answer is, hey, other people own medallions, so there you go. Well, nope, that doesn't help you. Public records and a New York State Attorney General's statement show that Cohen's medallion was overseen by Woodside Management Incorporated, located at 49-13 Roosevelt Avenue, which was one of 4 agencies run by Friedman's Taxi Club Management, Inc. Join the Taxi Club. Do you own a medallion? I'll manage it for you, and I'll actually do the taxiing part of it. Just join the Taxi Club. I'm not only a client, I am also the president of the Taxi Club for Men. Friedman pleaded guilty to felony tax fraud on May 22nd and agreed to pay $5 million back to the state and serve 5 years probation in exchange for his cooperation and possible testimony, the New York Times first reported. Tax evasion is a great crime to then link to other sorts of entities into the scheme. You put your whole checkbook into play, Shapiro said. It's great for the investigators. The Friedman plea and email revelations also make Cohen's taxi business a more central part of federal investigation into his and Trump's business dealings, especially if prosecutors are able to persuade Friedman to testify. Robert Mueller's special counsel team is also looking into Cohen's $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels in an effort to keep her silent about her affair with Trump, as well as other possible secret dealings with foreign entities. According to the BBC, Cohen also received a secret payment worth at least $400,000 to arrange a meeting with Ukraine's leader Petro Poroshenko and Trump in July of 2017. More Ukraine back in the news. Cohen also used his Trump Organization email to negotiate his payment to Daniels, NBC reported in March. We remember that. And just again, sloppy and stupid. Cohen's lawyer, Stephen Ryan, did not return an immediate request for comment. And I wouldn't either if my client was that stupid. Okay, an important and interesting update on that front. Let's see. For our last or near last story of the day, where do we go? How about this one? I think we have to cover this one in Bloomberg. They have a potentially explosive piece here from yesterday. Inside the pro-Trump effort to keep black voters from the polls. We knew about the effort. Let's get inside it and see just how ridiculous it really was. And it really was pretty amazing. Breitbart staffer, it says here in the subheader, recruited a Sanders activist Bernie Sanders, Bruce Carter, to get African Americans to support the Republican, Trump, or stay home, by Lauren Etter and Michael Riley. A lot of discussion about this one yesterday. Don't know that we'll get all the way through it, but we'll certainly shock you and make you interested in reading the rest of it for yourself if you haven't heard it already. Breitbart News landed an election scoop that went viral in August of 2016. Exclusive: Black Men for Bernie founder to end Democrat, quote, political slavery of minority voters by campaigning for Trump. It's problematic. If the splashy, counterintuitive story, which circulated on such conservative websites as TruthFeed and InfoWars, wasn't exactly fake news, it was carefully orchestrated. The story's writer, an employee of the conservative website run by Steve Bannon, who, remember, he was running Donald Trump's campaign. The website was run by Bannon before he did take over the campaign anyway, and who knows whether he ever separated. Probably not. Donald Trump never divested, and probably never did Steve Bannon either. Anyway, the story's writer at Breitbart spent weeks courting activist Bruce Carter to join Trump's cause. He approached Carter under the guise of interviewing him. The writer eventually dropped the pretense altogether, signing Carter up for a 10-week blitz aimed at convincing black voters in key states to support the Republican real estate mogul or simply sit out the election. Trump's narrow path to victory tightened further if Hillary Clinton could attract a Barack Obama-level turnout. Yes, and the big question looming behind all of this, in what universe is Breitbart allowed to claim to be both an actual journalistic outlet and also spend the time of its writers recruiting Bernie Sanders activists to become Donald Trump activists instead? How does that even... and the answer is, it's not permitted, but they effing did it anyway, and what are you going to do about it? Bannon's deployment of the psychological operations firm Cambridge Analytica in the 2016 campaign drew fresh attention this month when a former Cambridge employee told the U.S. Senate panel that Bannon tried to use the company to suppress the black vote in key states. Carter's story shows for the first time how an employee at Bannon's former news site worked as an off-the-books political operative in the service of a similar goal. I wonder, was he working out of the Breitbart embassy where Bannon also lived, thanks to the generosity of some mysterious Egyptian politician, etc., etc.? Probably. I don't know if that makes things worse or not, but once again, by the way, just another story of like the cesspool of how Capitol Hill townhouses owned by mysterious billionaires are really used day to day. All those pleasant little row houses around there that just look like friendly neighborhood folk are living there and sweeping their stoops and petting their cats by day, but in fact are political operatives, not always working on the up and up either. Anyway, Carter's recollections and correspondence, which he shared after a falling out with his fellow Trump supporters. Who could imagine falling out with racist Trump supporters? Provide a rare look inside the no-holds-barred nature of the Republicans' campaign and how it explored new ways to achieve an age-old political aim, getting the right voters to the polls and keeping the wrong ones away. If you can't stomach Trump, just don't vote for the other people and don't vote at all, Carter, 47, recalls telling black voters. It's the message he says the Trump campaign wanted him to deliver. That's what they wanted. That's what they got. The work Carter says he did and the funds he was given to do it also raised questions as to whether campaign finance laws were broken. They were. The group Carter founded, Trump for Urban Communities, never disclosed its spending to the Federal Election Commission, a possible violation all by itself of election law. In hindsight, Carter says he believed he was working for the campaign, so he wouldn't have been responsible for reporting the spending. His descriptions of the operation suggest possible coordination between Trump's campaign and his nominally independent efforts. If there was coordination, and how could there not have been, election law dictates that any contributions to groups such as his must fall within individual limits, no more than $2,700 for a candidate. One supporter far exceeded that cap, giving about $100,000 to Carter's efforts. That's what you get. Right? By the way, I'm a big Bernie Sanders supporter because, of course, Bernie Sanders teaches us, even if I'm not listening, we got to get big money out of politics, right? So first thing the guy does is say, oh, well, my guy lost. I'll take $100,000 from a mysterious source to campaign for the rich guy who does nothing but bring big money to politics because I was so super committed to the Bernie Sanders cause. And I guess I'll offer that up as an out clause for any Bernie Sanders supporters who are embarrassed by this guy. He clearly was not listening to the message at any point. Another potential issue is whether the unusual role played by the Breitbart reporter amounted to an in-kind contribution. Of course it did. There are some real legal problems here, some real problems. No legal, but that's what it says. There are some real problems here, says Lawrence Noble, who served as general counsel at the FEC during Republican and Democratic administrations and is now senior director and general counsel at the Campaign Legal Center, a nonpartisan advocacy organization. I would think this is more than enough evidence for the FEC to open an investigation, if there was, in fact, an FEC to do so. The Trump campaign and the White House didn't respond to repeated requests for comment. Bannon dismissed allegations that he sought to suppress the black vote, blaming their lower turnout on Clinton. When you ask them why they didn't vote for her or why they didn't turn up, it's because they didn't like her policies, he told Bloomberg in an interview last week. Bannon didn't respond to separate requests to explain his involvement with Carter. Carter's work on Trump's behalf ended badly. Started badly too, but it ended badly despite the campaign's victory in November of 2016. A little more than a week after the election, Carter's financial supporters backed away from plans to work with him on ambitious urban restoration efforts. Oh, you're kidding me, really? See, he did it. He did it not because he thought it was the right thing to do, but because he was going to win major support for urban restoration efforts that suddenly didn't materialize once the job was done. Got to get paid in advance, man. In an email, one of them cited a background check on Carter, but didn't specify its findings. Not that Trump people care about background checks all of a sudden. Carter acknowledges that he spent 18 months in federal prison nearly 2 decades ago after a felony gun possession conviction. While it's impossible to precisely measure Carter's effectiveness, Trump performed particularly well in the areas Carter targeted, says Dustin Stockton, the Breitbart reporter who recruited him. I don't know whether it's really true, but it is what he says. And he is a Breitbart reporter, so maybe not. In Philadelphia, where Carter spent much of his time, Clinton won about 35,000 fewer votes than Obama did in 2012, and that drop was primarily in majority black wards. Those ballots alone could have cut Trump's victory margin in Pennsylvania by more than half. Nationwide, Trump garnered a higher than expected share of black voters, while Clinton won significantly fewer than Obama did 4 years earlier. Trump vastly outperformed the projection models in the 12 areas Bruce was targeting in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida, Stockton says. I never like telling people not to vote, but from a tactical and strategic position, we looked at it. If you could get them to vote for Trump, that was a +2. It was a +1, he says, if they simply didn't vote at all. Super American message to be delivering to them. So lots more to this story. I'm looking forward to reading it myself, and we might even include part of the conclusion in tomorrow's show. Certainly something we're going to have to pay some close attention to, and a new front in not necessarily the investigation into Russian meddling, but a new front for those of us who are sleuthing this out at an amateur level here, or as a professional level as well, here in the United States. Just another amazing development that I guess was just never supposed to come to light, or maybe Bannon and Breitbart and those guys don't care now that it's over with. Too late. We've been installed by the so-called Electoral College, and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're just going to have to eat it for another couple of years until you have the chance to vote, quote-unquote, vote this all over again, and maybe we'll rig that one too. But just basically tells you all you need to know about the question of, gee whiz, was it's all rigged a projection as well, just like everything else he's ever said or accused anyone else of doing? The answer is obviously yes, and this is just part of the evidence to prove it. Okay. Well, time for us to hand the microphones over to Justice Putnam for his West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Here's what's coming up next. Let's see what we have missed that he's reporting on. Well, how about this? Oops, did the government place the death toll in Puerto Rico from Hurricane Maria at 64? Well, a Harvard study reveals that they really meant something near 6,000 dead instead. That is a big story. We didn't get to it, and thankfully, Justice and his program will be up to that task and much, much more next.
From Daily Kos Radio on netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
There's a little bit more. Customs and Border Protection has finally returned the $41,000 it seized from a Texas nurse on her way to open a women and children's medical clinic in Nigeria. How about this? The Constitution protects against illegal searches and seizures, but Justice Clarence Thomas isn't so sure that's a good thing. And much, much more right here next.